Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, your articles, research notes, whatever you've got, and really plunge in.
Yeah, we dig through it all to find those, key nuggets of knowledge and insight.
Think of us as your guides. We help you get well informed, pretty fast, actually, and maybe find a few surprising facts along the way.
And today, well, we're exploring a really fascinating document. It tackles that huge question humanity's always asked. Who are we deep down?
Right, and how much of that is like baked in from the start versus shaped by our lives?
Exactly. Nature versus nurture, the classic debate.
Yes. And this deep dive, it's custom made for you, our listener, based on the material you sent us. It draws from Dr. Lee Minsub's work, specifically his book, Genome Compass.
Ah, yes. He has this really interesting way of looking at things, big societal shifts, tech, AI, genomics, all through the lens of our genes.
He does. He focuses on that complex dance between genes, epigenetics, our environment, our experiences, using that to understand, well, everything around us and ourselves.
It's a really holistic view, trying to connect the dots scientifically and maybe even philosophically.
So our mission today, to unpack that age-old puzzle, nature versus nurture, but specifically how this document connects it to something familiar, the MBTI personality framework.
Oh yeah, Myers-Briggs. Everyone seems to know their type these days.
Totally. And we'll see how modern science, like actual genome analysis, adds this completely new, kind of surprising layer to understanding who we are. Okay, let's get into it.
Right. So let's start with the MBTI most people know. Those four-letter codes, right? ENFP, ISTJ, INTJ. They're everywhere.
They really are. It's like this psychological shorthand people use for understanding preferences, how they click with friends, dating, even at work.
It's become like part of the common vocabulary.
But the document makes a really crucial point about the typical MBTI, the one you get from taking a test.
Right. The key word is survey, because you're answering questions about yourself.
So it's your perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It primarily reflects your subjective self, how you see yourself at that moment, or maybe even how you want to be seen or think you should be.
And that self-perception, well, it can change quite a bit, can it? It's shaped by, pretty much everything.
Oh, absolutely. Your environment, your experiences, school, culture, social expectations, it all feeds into it.
The author gives some good examples, right?
Yeah, really relatable ones. Like,
Yeah.
imagine a naturally introverted kid. Quiet, maybe gets energy from being alone,
Okay.
but maybe they grow up in a family or a school that really pushes extroversion. Be loud, participate, always be outgoing.
So they learn to perform.
They adapt. They learn to act extroverted, and maybe they get good at it. So good that over time, when they take an MBTI survey, they genuinely answer in ways that flag them as an E, an extrovert.
Even if fundamentally they lean towards I introversion.
Precisely. Their learned behavior shapes their self-perception and thus their survey result.
Or think about work. Maybe you're naturally, spontaneous, go with the flow. But your job demands super detailed planning, hitting deadlines, being really structured. You learn those skills.
You have to. And that learned behavior, that adaptation, can definitely sway how you answer those survey questions about organization or planning.
So the survey reflects the you that's navigating the world right now, influenced by all these external pressures and roles.
Exactly. Social pressure, professional demands. They make us show certain traits, maybe even traits quite different from our sort of core innate nature.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, because the document introduces a totally different angle. Genetic-based personality prediction.
Right. This is completely different from the survey method. Instead of asking you how you feel or act,
It looks at your genes, your actual DNA.
that's the core idea. It leverages scientific research showing links between variations in specific genes and certain personality traits.
Wait, genes influencing personality? Like, beyond just physical traits?
Yeah, particularly genes involved with neurotransmitters. Think dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, the chemicals that regulate mood, motivation, how we react emotionally.
Wow. So our DNA might predispose us towards being, say, more adventurous or more cautious, more emotionally sensitive.
That's what the science suggests. The document gives specific examples, like variations in a gene called DRD4, linked to higher novelty seeking, maybe extroversion.
Okay.
Another one, 5-HTTLPR, affects how your brain uses serotonin. That influences emotional regulation, the anxiety sensitivity.
And there was another COMT.
Yeah, the COMT gene. That seems related to things like impulse control, planning ability, staying focused.
Huh. So if the survey MBTI reflects the current you shaped by life,
Then, the genetic analysis is trying to get a glimpse of something more fundamental, more innate.
Is that the idea that you started with?
Kind of like the default settings, yeah.
Yeah.
Because your core genetic makeup is set from the beginning, this analysis aims to reveal those deeper tendencies, perhaps less swayed by immediate circumstances or learned behaviors.
It really makes you think about those old sayings, doesn't it? The document mentions some Korean proverbs.
Ah, yeah, like 3-year-old habits last till 80.
Or you can't change your innate nature. There's this, like, folk wisdom across cultures suggesting some part of us is really deep-seated and stable.
And what's cool is how modern genetics seems to, well, back that up in a way. Twin studies are the classic example.
Identical twins, raised apart.
Exactly. Different homes, different experiences, yet they often show these striking similarities in personality, interests, even specific behaviors.
That's always seemed pretty compelling evidence for a strong genetic influence. Different lives, yet similar cores.
It really is. And the document actually cites figures. Scientific estimates suggest something like 40 to 60% of personality variation could be linked to genetics.
40 to 60%. That's a
It's
lot.
significant, yeah.
But it also means, the other 40 to 60% isn't just genes. So environment, nurture, it still plays a massive role.
Oh, absolutely critical. The document emphasizes this isn't an either-or thing. It's always, always an interaction.
Okay.
Your genes might set a potential, a predisposition, a range, but your environment, your upbringing, education, relationships, life events, that's what shapes how those genetic potentials actually get expressed, refined,
Yeah.
developed.
So it's not like your genes dictate your destiny. They just set the stage.
A good way to put it. And importantly, the situation you're in right now also massively influences which traits come out. You might have an innate tendency towards quiet reflection.
But if the building's on fire, you're probably not going to sit quietly and reflect.
Exactly. You adapt.
Yeah.
You access different parts of your potential based on the immediate need. Your behavior shifts.
Which leads to another really thought-provoking point in the document. When does that innate self tend to show up most strongly?
Ah, right. The idea that crisis reveals the true self.
Yeah, tell us about that. How does crisis do that?
Well, day to day, we're pretty good at wearing different hats, right? We adapt to social norms, professional expectations. We can act extroverted at a party, be organized for a project.
We operate using our current self, the adapted version.
Yes. But when things go really wrong, an unexpected crisis, extreme prolonged stress, deep conflict, sometimes those layers of adaptation can just fall away.
Like the mask slips.
Kind of. And what emerges are those more fundamental, perhaps more innate personality traits, the self you didn't know, or maybe the self you hadn't seen in action for a while.
You hear stories about that, people reacting in totally unexpected ways during emergencies or under huge pressure.
Precisely. You see it in disaster situations, serious personal conflicts, even the intense pressure cooker before or after a really high-stakes exam or presentation.
Does it get stronger over time?
The document suggests that, yeah, this tendency for innate traits to assert themselves, especially under pressure, might become more pronounced as people get older.
Huh. Why would that be? Biologically, is there a reason?
Well, under extreme stress, the brain can shift into a more primal, instinctual survival mode. It might sort of bypass the more recently learned adaptations and default to deeper, maybe genetically ingrained response patterns.
Like falling back on factory settings?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe as we age, some of the social pressures that demanded certain adaptations lessen, allowing our core nature a bit more room to breathe, even in normal life.
Okay, so if we pull all this together, personality isn't just one thing. Well, you called it a dance earlier, or the document used that double helix image.
Yeah, the double helix is a great analogy. Personality, temperament, aptitude, they emerge from that constant, intricate gene-environment interaction. Genes provide the initial blueprint.
The starting point, the raw material.
Exactly. And then environment, experiences, relationships, that's what determines how that blueprint actually gets built, how it's realized, refined, expressed.
So back to MBTI. The genetic MBTI result isn't the real you any more than the survey one is. They're both pieces of the puzzle.
That's a perfect way to think about it. The author suggests the genetic MBTI reflects the archetype or the default self, maybe the possibility self. It's your innate wiring.
And the survey MBTI.
That reflects the current self, who you are now after all that interaction with the world. It shows your adaptations, your learned responses, your current self-perception.
So understanding both, that gives you a much fuller picture.
Exactly. They might match up closely. They might be quite different, creating internal tension perhaps, or they might complement each other. Knowing both your current self and your potential self gives you like a 3D view.
And that helps you make better choices.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Choices about work, relationships, how you manage stress, aligning them not just with who you are today, but maybe also with those deeper innate tendencies.
Yeah.
Understanding where you might naturally thrive versus where you successfully adapted.
This makes the author's own story so relevant. Dr. Lee Minsub, you mentioned he's a scientist, founder, manager.
Roles that often demand very visible leadership, strategic thinking, lots of interaction.
And his survey results reflected that.
Consistently.
Yeah.
He says his survey MBTI always came back as ENTJ, extroverted, intuitive, thinking, judging, which made total sense for his professional life. He was successful in roles requiring that kind of outward-facing, logical, decisive approach. He adapted.
So survey says extrovert, matched his life.
Yep, but then he got his genomic analysis done.
Yeah.
His genetic profile indicated INTJ, introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging.
Whoa, okay, so the N, T, and J matched, but the EVSI, that's a big difference. Survey says extrovert, genes say introvert.
Huge difference. And he said, realizing this was incredibly meaningful, it explains so much. While he could perform extroversion very effectively for his work,
His core wasn't extroverted.
no. He realized his deepest thinking happens alone. He recharges in solitude. Quiet spaces restore his energy, not crowds or constant interaction. That's his innate preference, his genetic tendency.
So the genetics revealed his natural energy source, even though his life demanded he operate differently much of the time.
Exactly. He described it as living as an extroverted executor with roots of an introverted strategist.
Oh, wow. Extroverted executor with roots of an introverted strategist. That perfectly captures it, doesn't it? The adaptation built on top of the innate foundation.
It really does. The survey showed the successful adapted persona. The genetics revealed the underlying wiring, the default setting, the possibility self, as he calls it. Seeing both gave him that much richer, more complete sense of his real self.
So personality, it's not rigidly fixed from birth. You're not just stuck.
No,
But it's also not something you can just completely change on a whim, like picking a new outfit.
definitely not. The document frames it more like a scientific spectrum. Your genes define a range of potential. Think of them as providing the key that unlocks certain possibilities for traits and behaviors.
Okay, genes are the key.
And your environment, your experiences, your choices. That's like the guide deciding which door's unlocked by that key you actually walk through and how you navigate the rooms beyond.
That makes sense. The key gives you access. The guide shapes the journey.
Right. And understanding your key, your innate tendencies, can give you really valuable self-knowledge. What comes naturally? Where might you need to consciously adapt? What environments might suit you best?
Which sounds like it could help with, well, pretty much everything. Self-awareness, relationships, career choices.
Absolutely. More honest self-perception can lead to better communication in relationships. Choosing a career path that aligns better with your natural energy patterns or thinking style could lead to more satisfaction. It fuels deeper self-reflection, for sure.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface of this scientifically, this intersection of genetics, psychology, neuroscience.
It's definitely an emerging field. The document mentions personal genomic psychology, this idea integrating genetic data, brain science, maybe even AI, to get a much more nuanced picture of individual personality.
That sounds potentially revolutionary for self-understanding.
It's using these incredibly powerful new tools to shed light on that ancient question, who am I? And the author ends with that really beautiful analogy.
The music one.
Yeah. Personality is the melody played by the environment on the score, written by genes, and its rhythm is remembered in the cells.
The melody played by the environment on the score written by genes. That really sticks with you. The genes provide the structure, the potential notes.
The musical score, yeah.
Yeah.
But your life, your experiences, the world acting upon you,
Yeah.
that's what plays the unique melody, your specific expression of that potential.
And that melody becomes part of you, remembered in the cells. Wow.
It captures that intricate interplay beautifully.
So this deep dive really highlights that personality is this complex, dynamic thing, not just a label from a survey, not just a fixed genetic destiny. It's that ongoing dance between the genetic score and the environmental melody.
And understanding both parts, the subjective current self revealed by introspection and surveys, and the underlying potential suggested by our genetic blueprint that offers a much deeper, more profound insight into who we are and maybe who we can become.
It leaves you thinking, though. Knowing there might be this difference between the you experience day to day and the you suggested by your genes. How does that change how you think about personal growth?
Or about resilience. When things get tough, which self shows up? Does knowing your potential default help you navigate challenges?
Or even just understanding your own reactions sometimes. Why you feel drained by things others find energizing, or vice versa. What does this mean for self-acceptance? Accepting the innate parts, maybe the less convenient parts, alongside the parts we've cultivated.
It's a big question. How do we balance accepting our fundamental nature with our capacity and desire to adapt, learn, and consciously shape the melody of our lives?
Definitely something to mull over as you navigate your own unique melody today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.